that drink touched that kid, if I had a bat, I probably would have swung it and hit him. If he poured a drink on my baby or spilled a drink on my kid, it's over. Period. It's over.
Parallax. You are now tuned into the Parallax Effect. It's not the message, it's the messenger. What up, Ryan? It's time. Parallax. Oatmeal's better than no meal. Guess who's back to make mountains out of molehills? If this don't move you, I bet my folks will. This beat's smooth, but trust me, there ain't no chill. Ask Ryan, if I'm lying, I'm flying. It's the sculpture of all aspects of the culture. Parallax. The People's Podcast is back, laying it down flat for you wherever you at. Your job, or your car, or your jog, or your flight. Loads of archives with no ending in sight. Hitting on any topic, long as it ain't no nonsense. You can see the others for the drama and the gossip. Word to Brett, best there ever was, recognize it. Never secondary, my eyes stay on the pocket. Parallax. And if you feeling the vibes, give us 5 stars. Oh, and follow and subscribe. Parallax. Sit back and recline, relax and enjoy the ride. Cause it's that Parallax. And you just passed the test. This is the Parallax Effect. Come on, Parallax. Sit back and recline, relax and enjoy the ride. Cause it's that Parallax. And you're here, that's mad respect. Welcome to the Parallax Effect. Yeah.
We are back. This is the Parallax Effect Podcast, where we continue to navigate through the shifting tides of perspectives. I am your host, Ryan Lavelle. Great to have you back on this week's episode as we have an action-packed sports entertainment themed show for you today. Let me quickly remind you, as always, that you can find us on Instagram at Parallax Effect Media, on Facebook at the Parallax Effect Podcast, on Twitter at Parallax Effects. Once again, that's Parallax Effects with an S. And also on TikTok at RiloCan27, or search the Parallax Effect Media. And also, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. The link is in the show description, as well as on the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. All right. As always, we get right to it. We waste no time. I am super excited for today's guest, as they are largely responsible for giving me the courage to finally execute this very show, which hopefully you enjoy pretty much weekly, which had remained an idea and a dream of mine for a long while until I met them. So my guests are the hosts of That's Freakin Wrestling Podcast, which is one of the premier podcasts in wrestling. If you are a wrestling fan and you are not listening to this podcast, something has to change, because this is the place to be for all the latest wrestling news, the best topics of debate, the latest and greatest of everything going on in the wonderful world of wrestling that we all love. So without further ado, please let me introduce. I got Matt, I got Rhodesia, and I got E right here on the Parallax Effect Podcast. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you for having
Incredible, Tio.
Amazing, Tio.
Incredible.
Thank you.
Wow.
I tell you what, we now have the crossover Parallax and TFW podcast coming together. That was a fantastic intro, but I got to put you over, Ryan. I got to put you over. We met WrestleMania weekend, and you were thinking about doing the podcast, and I'm like, man, just go out and do it. And you have hit the ground running and have started it in 2-3 months after, we had that conversation, man. So shout out to you. So
Absolutely.
many people who have dreams and aspirations to do things, and they keep saying they want to do it, and they keep saying they want to do it. They never take that step forward to do it. And you've done it, man. So shout out to you for that. And thank you for having us on your platform. We appreciate it.
Oh, much appreciated. Yes, that conversation was one of the most meaningful conversations regarding, obviously, starting the podcast that I ever had. We met at the event, the Super Kickback, hosted by Andreas Hale. Big shout out to him.
Shout out.
We saw you at the bar. We just started chatting it up. I didn't know drinks were free, so I offered to buy you one. I wasn't aware. I didn't get that memo. But yeah, we struck up a very good conversation, and I was just kind of laying it on you like, man, I got this and I got this ready, but I need to do that. And then you just, after a while, you're like, all right, dude, look, I'm just going to tell you what you don't want to hear. Start the show. record an episode. And I was like, man, why hasn't anybody told me that before? But they probably have. But as we say in the show intro, it's the message. It's the messenger, not the message. And you delivered the perfect message at the perfect time. And here we are today. So thank you to each of you for helping me out with that. It really means a lot.
Hey, I always equate it to like having kids. You know, you never think you're ready.
Mm-mm.
And you're like, no, let me push it back. We need a bigger house. No, let me push it back. We need more money. No, let me push it back. It's not the right time. It's never the right time until it's the right time. So it is the right time for you, my good man.
Much appreciated. E, how we doing, man? It's great to meet you as well, too. I want to know, so I don't know too much about your backstories, each of you, where you're from. I mean, I know Detroit, I think, is where you call home. I see it on your shirt, especially Matt.
Yes, sir.
As well, too. So tell me a little bit about, upbringing, growing up over there, and how you fell in love with wrestling.
It's nice to meet you as well, Ryan. That's an amazing story. I really wanted to go to that event, and I'm really sad I didn't get to go, so I didn't get to experience it along with you guys. But for me, I've been a fan of wrestling ever since I was probably 6 years old. I remember my first memory of wrestling, right? I'm going way back. It was my brother, so he's a butthole, right? And he didn't let me hang out with him. So I had to kind of sneak and hang out with him, right? So one day, it's a Saturday, he's watching Superstars, WWF Superstars, whatever time it came on, he's watching it. And I'm a big karate guy, kung fu guy, and he's watching wrestling. I see this guy with a red, bandana on and white pants, white boots, doing karate chops, doing kind of like a karate thing. I think he came out in a white dojo, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. And so I'm like, oh, this is a ninja? This is a karate guy? And so I watched the whole entire episode. And then from there, I just was immediately hooked, Ryan. I mean, I was hooked on it. I remember going to the CVS, the drugstores, getting all the magazines. It just been an amazing part of my journey. And I'll tell you this, and I'll pass over to Matt and Rhodesia. I was a solo fan, right? Because I grew up in Detroit, and wrestling wasn't cool. A lot of the nerd things I liked, wasn't cool. So I kind of really kept that passion to myself. I didn't have any wrestling friends growing up. I didn't really get wrestling friends until I became family with Matt and Rhodesia much later in my life. And in some ways, I started becoming one of those fans that was kind of, I stopped watching wrestling as much. But spending time with Matt and Rhodesia and their awesome 7'8" son, just being around these guys, just rekindled my passion and my love for wrestling. So I don't think I would still be watching wrestling and still be as passionate if their passion didn't re-engage mine.
That's the sweetest thing Eshaun has ever said to me.
You know what? I could die happy. The intro that we got from Ryan.
Come on this podcast every week.
Yeah, like
so
seriously.
Eshaun can continue to give us the positivity he just did. Typically, it's like, I ain't gonna tell you what he usually says about us.
We're on our best behavior. That's what it is.
No, you know what's funny, man? You talk about that, and I think, like, for me, my first memory of wrestling that I can remember is Hogan and Andre on the Brother Love show. When Hogan, took off the necklace, the chain, and ripped it. Hogan's bleeding on his chest. I remember sitting there watching with my mom, and I just remember, like, this is like crazy. Like, what am I watching right now? Like, what is really happening? Because I was big into sports, so I knew about boxing back in the day. I was ever since I can remember, I liked football and basketball, but it felt like I was immediately hooked at that moment. And of course, back then there was no pay-per-view, so WrestleMania 3 was what they were promoting. So that was what we used to call back in the day closed circuit television. You actually had to go somewhere like a movie theater to watch it. There was no pay-per-view, or you called the 900 hotline. And at the time, my aunt and my grandma lived across the street, and I remember we get a phone call, and she just is like screaming, Hulk Hogan body slammed Andre the Giant. And I remember running up the steps telling my sister, I think she was in the bathroom, I didn't care. Like, Hulk Hogan just body slammed Andre the Giant. And at that point, I was already like massively hooked. You couldn't tell me anything about wrestling. It was like every single week, you know, superstars every 4 times a year, Saturday night's main event, challenge on Sundays. I've been hooked for the most part, my entire life. It went a couple years where we kind of got out of watching, particularly around the Cena era. When he first started, they came out of the Attitude Era, and then we got into the Ruthless Aggression era. And I'm like, all right, this kind of isn't for me. And then you kind of couple that with, we had our son, so it just wasn't a lot of extra time to watch. And then we end up getting really back into it when The Rock came back, when he was the guest host of WrestleMania 27, 28, I believe it was, in Atlanta. Yeah. And we end up going to that WrestleMania, and then we went to like 12 in a row after that. But it's been in my DNA the same way music is in my DNA, the way sports is in my DNA. It's just something I could not imagine not watching.
Listening to y'all two definition and your first memories of what brought you into wrestling, I feel so bad. Mine was literally a phone call from our girl Terry T-Wheat. Shout out to T-Wheat. Hey, turn on channel 50 UPN, United Plantation Network. Turn to UPN, and we see one time The Rock in his Versace shirt on with his sideburns, and it was purely just, oh my God, this guy is a specimen. He is fine. Ever since then, I fell in love with wrestling. In my high school, I probably was kind of weird for a girl to watch wrestling, but again, that was my absolute favorite thing to watch. All I got to see was SmackDown, so I didn't know anything about Raw. And then sure enough, later, about a year and a half later, I met somebody, the love of my life, who was even crazier about wrestling than I was. And from that moment, I was like,
who was
yep,
that?
You.
Oh, how beautiful was that?
And ever since then, I'm like, yep, this is it. So mine was purely off of The Rock and how fine and gorgeous he was. And it probably is why I'm so infatuated about Roman now. It's just something about that Samoan look. Whew. Now let's keep it moving, I guess.
You know,
right?
it's funny you say that, though, because if you think about it, look how many beautiful women are in wrestling now. I'm sure a lot of guys probably off of first look were like, oh, man, look at her. Man, look at her. And that may be how they got into it. And then they started getting into it for the actual, you know, everything that comes with wrestling. But looks are a big thing in wrestling. We actually talked about that a few months ago on one of our shows.
Huge
you know,
thing.
Like, there's not many ugly looking women or men in wrestling. They all pretty much fit that bill of you want to look at them.
But that is actually Vince McMahon's preference too, for male or female wrestler superstar, is the look, you know, whether that's the great body or whatever. But yeah, Roman is someone who keeps, you know, my fiance Jasmine engaged, so she's all about the bloodline only because of Roman. So everything, you know, that we discuss and we talk about when we watch has a little bit of him inside, you know, in the conversation or whatnot. But my first experience takes me back to around 91, 92. I was a fringe fan of wrestling at that time. So wasn't a weekly watcher or anything like that. And so on the fringe, you just really know, you know, the folks that they're pushing the most. So we knew Macho Man and Slim Jims. You know, we knew Ultimate Warrior. We obviously knew Hulk Hogan. But when I really wanted to start getting into wrestling, I wanted someone different. I didn't want to follow Hulk Hogan. You know, he was just the vitamins, prayers thing. I mean, it's a great message for kids, but I just wanted something different. And then emerges Bret the Hitman Hart. And I'm like, okay, this dude, like, he doesn't smile a lot. Like, he takes care of business. He takes things seriously. And back then we weren't really sure, you know, is it real? Is it not real? How much of it is, you know, what do we, you know, we're super young back then. So fast forward to SummerSlam 92, British Bulldog, like that match pulled me in. And I think it was the following year where the rivalry with Jerry Lawler came, to Kiss My Foot match and all that kind of stuff. And then right after
King of the Ring, I think, right?
King of the Ring, yeah. So right after that, I was hooked. So that was my way in. So good to hear everybody's entry story, so to speak, into this wonderful world of wrestling that we all enjoy. Those of you watching or listening, you can tell this is going to be a full wrestling show. This is the episode I've been waiting to do, so I'm super excited about it. So we're going to go straight from there. What was your first live event? Was it a house show? Was it a pay-per-view? Was it a Monday Night Raw, SmackDown?
I can't remember, Matt. I went with you.
Yeah, your first was
Maybe a
actually, I think
SmackDown.
your first may have been a house show. It was, if I'm remembering correctly, it was Brock hadn't debuted on TV yet, so they had him on the house show loops destroying Spike Dudley, and that was the match that we had. Jericho and Rock was on top, so that was the main event. I think that was your first show, and then we went to SmackDown or Raw after that. Mine's was Saturday Night Main Event. And this is probably 85, 86. It was a battle royal. And I remember we had floor seats. If anybody's ever been to a wrestling show, of course I'm tall enough now, but if you are short or you're a kid, if you can't get the first 2 rows, don't even bother. Go first level, go second level, go third level, because you can't see.
Like that for me now.
Me too.
And we weren't first or second row, but we were on the floor and I couldn't see anything. And good luck trying to get people to sit down. So my dad was a police officer at the time. So he, talked to one of the security guys and they moved us so we could start seeing. But by that time, the battle royal was over and that was all I cared about. I was a huge Hulkamania fan. They threw him over the top. He didn't win the battle royal. I was ready to go at that point. But that was my first ever show that we've ever gone to.
You know what? I didn't go to shows really until I became an adult. I did go to a Raw with a couple buddies that weren't super passionate about wrestling as I am. But we were like in the upper levels, like way in the back, kind of, we just want to get in the building type seats.
Right.
And I honestly, so it's funny story. I kind of remember falling asleep during like the pre-matches. And that's the only thing memorable about that I remember. So for me, I kind of want to remember like my first memorable show that I went to. And that was my first WrestleMania. And that was with these guys. It was in Dallas, Texas. And man, that just was an awesome experience. I never had been to a WrestleMania, never been to a show that big before. The entire, you guys just went to Mania, California. Just the entire weekend just was so awesome to be around fans, the fan access, to be in the building, to be at the show, the lights. It just was just an amazing experience for me to be able to share a moment with my best friends. My wife was there, and that's another story too. When I met my wife, right, she used to watch all the shows with me, man. Let me tell you, Ryan, when we were dating, I'm like, oh man, I love this girl. Like she's actually watching all the shows, and she's like intense. She's like watching it, man. Like, her eyes she's in it, right?
Right.
We get married. I can't get this woman to watch wrestling. Like wrestling comes on, she goes in the other room, right? Like anytime it comes on, she's just out of there, right? But when I go to the shows, I gotta drag her to the show because she has to be involved. She likes the experience, she says, but she really tricked me. But yeah, it was just an amazing WrestleMania experience for me.
Excellent. And I can't, as I asked that question, I was thinking of my own answer. And I know house shows were my first experience. And I don't remember, obviously, each one because, they're kind of a blur, especially this late in the game, whatever. But one thing I do remember is for the first time seeing Yokozuna live.
Wow.
Seeing Yokozuna live was like, he was, that's what they say. They're, they're big on TV. They are bigger in person. And I couldn't believe that was one person. I'm like, this is, how does this even work my mind started going airplanes, cars, so I couldn't even imagine seeing something like Andre the Giant live. But the first premium event was WrestleMania 12, right? That was the Iron Man match, right? In Anaheim, at the what then was the Anaheim Pond. It's now the Honda Center where the Ducks play. So I knew I had to go. So my best friend, my brother, I think my dad bought us tickets. And like you said, we was way up top, helping change light bulbs on the top of the ceiling. You know how that goes. But yeah, that was my first event, and I kind of not embarrassed to say, I think I shed a tear at the end of that match when Brett lost. I didn't, like we said, we didn't really know. We didn't have a feel for what was scripted, what wasn't, and how it was going to be scripted. I didn't have that savvy at that time to kind of know, like, all right, this might be the way it's going to go. So I was disappointed, and I left there disappointed that day.
So Ryan, 2 quick questions for you. Do you remember when you realized it was predetermined?
It was definitely somewhere around that time. Maybe it was definitely before WrestleMania 10. So, but I just didn't really have a feel for like how the match was going to go based on the shows leading up to the match. You know, you kind of get an idea of who's being pushed and who is whatever, you know, whatever is happening. And I was just along for the ride at that point.
And then my second question is, have you gone back to watch that match and have you realized that is one of the most overrated matches in WWE history?
Part A to that question is yes. Part B to that question, it is one of the quintessential matches in WWE history. They've tried to duplicate it several times with several top talents. Never have been able to quite do it. The only one I think was who was the women's Iron Man match with Sasha, I think, and
Sasha and Bailey.
Yeah,
that one 30
was
minutes.
Good. That one was good. But none of the other ones could hold a candle to Brett and Shawn.
That's hilarious.
I think Brett and Shawn is one of the most overrated matches in the history of the business. And I haven't watched it probably in over a decade. Maybe I need to go back and watch it. But I remember watching it the first time, and I'm like, this isn't good. And I think a lot of people just act like they thought it was good because it's 60 minutes. First time we've seen it in the United States. Nah, I was.
You're not convinced? So we need to watch it together and cast it. So you and I need to do a cast and watch it together and do commentary. We'll turn off Jim Ross. No disrespect to him. I love the guy, and we'll do it ourselves. How's that?
And then about 29 minutes in, when you're like, damn, this really is overrated, we can turn on like MJF and Bryan Danielson's Iron Man match that kills that one. Or even like Triple H and Rock was better than that
Triple
Iron
H
Man
and Rock
match.
was not better than Brett and Shawn. This had pageantry. This had emotion. You could see it in there. I mean, and I give Shawn a lot. You know what? Let's stick to that rivalry for a second, because I think because of how early the rivalry ended, because it got obviously too real, it doesn't get enough credit for what it did for wrestling and how good it actually was. Especially coming down to Survivor Series 97. We obviously all know what happened there. But I went back and watched that match. But let me say this first. When that match ended, I quit WWF at the time myself.
Wow.
Brett's out. I'm out. I'm not doing this. This is not the way it's supposed to be. So some of you explained the gaps you might have taken in wrestling at certain times. That was my gap in wrestling, and probably till about, 2005, 2006, when they brought him back for the Hall of Fame. But anyway, that match was really good. Obviously before the ending. Do any of you have any feelings on that, or the rivalry in general?
Well, when I love that match, I thought the intensity was off the charts. That is a perfect hello CM Punk, hello Young Bucks, hello Kenny Omega. That is a perfect tape to pop in if you have real life issues, but then you keep it professional, but you stay snug.
Mm-hmm.
That is the carbon copy of what anything should look like going forward. Hell, we saw Matt Hardy and Edge, and we knew how deep that was. Mm-hmm. Same thing with that. Worked really snug, but still super professional. But it's funny you bring up like Brett and Shawn. Either you're one or the other. Either you're a Brett guy or you're a Shawn guy. I've never met anybody who was like, I could take or leave either one of them. Nope. Everybody besides Rhodesia, because she doesn't count. She wasn't watching wrestling back then.
I wasn't.
like you are a Shawn guy.
He is a Shawn guy.
Like through and through.
Super Shawn guy.
Speak on that.
But I will say this, though, to be honest. There you go. I hit it. I was trying to let you know, Ryan. We talk about how many times I'll say be honest on the podcast. That's just my thing.
All right, we got one.
That's just my thing. Right? That's my phrase.
Okay.
I appreciate Brett. Even back during that time frame. Now, I think now that I'm a little older and I'll go back and see some of his matches, I appreciate them a little more. Because Brett had a series of great matches with Kevin Nash, of all people. He had a great match with Undertaker. He had some really nice matches. Now, he had kind of a predictable cadence to his matches. He had like the elbow off the top onto his knees, the swinging backbreaker. He had like a cadence, but it always looked pretty good. But to Matt's point, Shawn Michaels is my favorite wrestler of all time. And I really appreciated their matches. I appreciated their feuds. But I will say, as a fan of Shawn Michaels, our Iron Man match, I remember watching it and was kind of bored during the match.
Oh, so we got 2 against 1 here for that one, huh?
Yeah, but I'm definitely down again. So that I haven't seen that match in probably 15 years or so.
Yeah,
I would love to. Maybe now I'm a little bit of a mature man and fan. Maybe I can appreciate the slower pace of that match, right?
Yeah.
Like same thing about Bret. I was never against Bret. I would never say I was an anti-Bret guy. I actually thought he looked cool. I like the pink and black. I like the glasses. I like his whole little setup. Is that Shawn Michaels was my man, but I appreciate his matches more now as an older fan. Maybe if I go back and watch that Iron Man match, I might appreciate it a little bit more.
I think.
And the thing about Bret too, Ryan.
Go
quick,
ahead,
the
Matt.
thing about Bret, to your point with you being such a Bret guy, Bret was the first main wrestler. If you take away the pink and black, he was just a damn good wrestler.
He was a wrestler.
It wasn't a gimmick. He wasn't, you know what I mean? It wasn't he's crazy or he's a dead man or he's at the time, 12-time champion. No, he's Bret Hart. And he had a level of realism to his promos, to his matches. Like one of the things about Bret that I love so much was his strikes. His working punch and his kicks. He comes full force and he's never given somebody a black eye. He's never hurt anybody in the ring. And that should speak for something. And I think that's why we all kind of gravitate to Bret, even if he's not your favorite. Everybody has a special place in their heart for Bret because he was the first guy, I think, on TV, especially when he got away from the tag team, the Hart Foundation. You're like, oh no, he's real though. Yeah, I know whatever may be going on, but he's real.
Right.
That's a cool guy.
And to be and let me go back to Shawn real quick because I think that the kind of second half of his career really helped build back his persona, his character that
Absolutely.
We all know how he was in the 90s, how he was difficult to deal with. So I think that redemption story was very great for him. But for Bret, being the guy to come out of the Hogan era, first of all, was very tough. And when you look at him and his physique and his buildup, he was kind of billed as a smaller guy. But to your point, he had a lot of power moves. He was a powerful, technical wrestler. You give Shawn definitely the nod on the aerial skills and different things like that, which definitely deserves a ton of credit. But I give Bret a lot of credit in that way, coming from the land of the giants to take it to the former mid-carders to say, hey, we need to be on the top of the card. So I think he did a lot for the future of wrestling in that way. And plus the rivalries that he had with Shawn, especially the one that gave way to Stone Cold, right? He comes back and says, I want to work with Austin. And, Austin's not really established at that point, Steve Austin. And as soon as he works with Bret, that just puts him, right over the top. So it's those things that I also attribute that make his run that much more meaningful.
He was an excellence of execution. And you know what? You think about Bret as a wrestler, his style can be in any generation. Bret Hart can transport from the 90s into today and have 5-star matches with anybody in any of the promotions, right? A lot of those older wrestlers that we might say was great back in the day, their style might not transcend, but his definitely does. He definitely was underappreciated and maybe a little ahead of his time.
Well,
Yeah,
you know how to work.
I can definitely see. I can see the being ahead of his time. What I will say is I'm excited to do this live broadcast next time for us to all watch it. I've never watched the Iron Man match. I've seen the very end of it, but the full 60 minutes, I'm assuming the 60 minutes, I never actually watched it from beginning to end. So this is going to be, I think I'll be the tiebreaker here to see is it really overrated or if it's not overrated.
Yeah, but we're going to send you the build up and everything that led up to it first so you can have that type of anticipation,
emotion,
that I felt when, before I went down there to WrestleMania 12. But yeah, so we mentioned the parallels to some of the current real rivalries going on in wrestling right now. That being CM Punk, especially, is I think the hottest story behind in the gorilla position or in the locker room as well too. How we feeling about that? Was the right decision by Tony? Are you backing Tony in AEW? Are you backing CM Punk? Where do you stand on this? We'll start with you, Rhodesia.
Exactly. So I said this before that CM Punk should have never came back to AEW. After the scrum, the all-out scrum, the total disrespect that he had for this man that was sitting next to him, he acted like a straight-up ass. He completely showed the bad side of him. He's too, I don't want to say old, that's not fair. He's too mature and too much of a veteran to even do what he did at All Out Scrum. That already set the tone for me. So he already came with baggage, already being polarized coming from WWE. I get how that ended, and I understand now that he was not in the right mental capacity. His body was hurting. He was breaking down. All of that. I get that. But just overall, I never cared for Punk's run back when he came to AEW. Initially, I did. Again, everybody. He was gone, 7 years? We were there not at when he first came back, but we were there for All Out, Double or Nothing, whatever he came back at. But point is, I was happy for that because anybody who was a pro wrestling fan would be happy for that. But then he showed his ass over and over and over again. Then he comes back. He gets Collision, debuted Collision, completely acts ASS on Collision as well, throwing people under the bus. From that moment on, I'm like, no, I'm over it. Completely through with him, completely done with him. I am a CM Punk hater. They'll probably tell you that. So for me, Tony did a great job. I think not only one did he put his foot down and put on his big boy pants, he also set a tone for his locker room that, listen, we're not going to keep doing this. All In was their biggest show, pro wrestling biggest show, somebody can argue. And it has this black cloud over it because of what happened. Good riddance.
She hot over there.
That's what you call a promo right there.
Yeah, definitely. For me, Ryan, I think that it was the right decision to let him go once all the information came out. If Tony felt like his life was in danger and his safety was in danger, and the crew was in danger, and all these different things, and Punk was a common denominator in a lot of the negativity surrounding AEW. I think it's unfortunate. And in a lot of ways, I think it's something that possibly could have been avoided if things were handled the correct way from the very beginning, especially when some of these rifts started happening backstage with the Hangman and the Bucks and the different places. I think that, because this is what I do know, I don't think this would have happened in WWE. In any way, right? And you can call it, the structure, discipline, leadership, whatever it may have been. This wouldn't have happened in WWE. This wouldn't happen in any really professional setting. So the fact that it happened in AEW, and this isn't, we're looking at Punk, but this isn't the first time these things have crept up in AEW. So I think that's part of the problem, that there's an infrastructure that allows this kind of behavior to kind of like fester and grow out of control. And because that structure isn't as sound as it is, I think somebody like a CM Punk, who probably needed to be kind of insulated, who needed firm leadership, was able to kind of flutter out of control. But ultimately, yes, I think it was the right decision. I think is a regrettable decision. I told the guys the other day that I feel bad for AEW. I feel bad for the fans, because Collision was a really good show. I think that CM Punk was definitely a star for that company that needs stars in that company. So the fact that it didn't work out, I think it's regrettable.
Yeah, Tony didn't have a choice at this particular spot. There was no option. If whatever happened, where his life, he felt like his life was in danger. That could be some lawyer speak, for sure. But my assumption is it was much more than what we've heard surrounding just a little bit of tussle between Jack Perry and CM Punk. There's more to that. CM Punk hollers to Tony Khan, "I hate this place." Nobody else in the world can probably tell their boss, "I hate this place," and then come back to work like nothing's happened in front of your entire roster on your biggest show in history after you've already had these other issues. I am a Punk apologist. I love CM Punk in terms of what he brings to wrestling. I think he's one of the most smart wrestlers that know how to use what they have, probably in the history of the business. You look at CM Punk, if you saw him walking down the street, you would never take a second look at CM Punk. You see CM Punk on television with a microphone in his hand, you can't take your eyes off of him.
That's fair.
It's pretty incredible when you think about that. But Tony had to do what he had to do. If you were to take CM Punk's name off and just say, hey, this wrestler is going to trash your EVPs after a match in a shoot style promo, throw them under the bus, then gets into a fight with those EVPs after that. Then we give this person their own show for the most part on Saturday, so they don't have to mingle with those said EVPs on Wednesday's show. He gets into it with a couple of wrestlers backstage in the first few weeks of this show. He tells talent relations, the head of talent relations, you can't be here. You would say, hey, should we keep this person? Oh, yeah. And then gets into a fight with someone who was on the pre-show at the biggest show in the history of our company in Wembley. Should this person still be here? Everybody would say, got to get rid of him. And then when you say, oh, but that person's CM Punk, you kind of take a pause a little bit. The only person that you can compare it to in WWE would be Roman. And say, okay, if Roman did those exact same things, do they pull the trigger on Roman? And I don't think they would pull the trigger on Roman. But CM Punk's not Roman.
Right. And
so that's basically what it is.
Yeah, and here for me is the real case of we saw live and in vivo that CM Punk has never healed from what happened in WWE. He's just never healed. And you see some folks who are wrong. And let's just put this out there, because and like you mentioned, Matt, CM Punk was wronged in WWE. For you're champion for 400 some days, you don't headline WrestleMania. I get it. You had Rock and Cena 2 years in a row around that time or whatever. But that is your dream, to headline WrestleMania. They did not give that to you. You were the champion. I get it. But at the same time, that kind of belittles, or that kind of lessens that championship reign, right? So that falls apart. We obviously know what happened after that, but we saw that he never healed from that. And now in this situation, and I'm not trying to throw any shots at Tony Khan or AEW or anybody, but Tony Khan is not an experienced promoter that Vince McMahon is. Vince McMahon let CM Punk air out his grievances with the pipe bomb promo. There was reality in that promo. Vince McMahon let Paul Heyman air out his grievances in that promo that he had in the early to mid 2000s. And Paul Heyman tells the story. Vince said, just go say whatever. Make me money. I don't care. So we don't have that kind of situation here in AMW to handle. And Punk is used to that, as you mentioned, that style of treatment in the WWE where this wouldn't have happened. But you don't have that protection in AEW, and everything went awry.
It went awry. And to your point with Vince would always look at what's best for business. In a different way than Tony Khan. Tony Khan looked at Punk as he's best for business. That's why he's here. Vince would say, okay, you guys have an issue? Come to my office. Let's talk this out. And now we're going to make money with it.
Right.
We spoke about earlier, Edge and Matt Hardy. Talked about Bret and Shawn. There's countless over the years in WWE. There is no way, though, that, and Punk knows this, and we talked about it on our pod this past week. I think Punk's going to WWE. I think you absolutely, if you're Triple H, you make that phone call, you run it by a couple of really, really top wrestlers to say, hey, what's your thoughts about us bringing this guy into the locker room? Because we don't get this Punk in WWE. Punk would never go into business for himself out on live TV. He would never cut a shoot promo sitting next to Triple H at WrestleMania's press conference after the PLE's over. It's a completely different person. I personally think, and I don't think I even said this yet, I think he got fired on purpose. I think he wanted to get fired. If you go back to before he came back, remember, he showed up when WWE was in Chicago.
Yeah.
Allstate Arena. He shows up. What are you showing up for? I personally think he showed up, yes, to make amends, but then also to ask Triple H, hey, if this falls through, is there a home for me here? And Triple H made to say, hey, we'll talk. And that's it. But I really believe he hated AEW that much to where he's like, if I can get out of my contract, I think I can go back to WWE because he's lost out on millions. If you look at the way they spoke in that statement that Tony Khan released, he's not getting paid out the rest of his contract. I don't even think there's a non-compete. So I don't even think he's getting paid for the next 90 days. I think this was completely termination because he said with cause. So I think that he has completely lost out on millions of dollars. And not to say who knows how his financial situation is, but everybody misses some millions of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
And I think now the only place that can pay him that is WWE.
So the next question definitely was, should WWE take him back? And some of the additional sub questions I have for that as well too is, where does he fit in the card? You got very strong pushes for several wrestlers. Obviously, we have Roman on the top, but Cody's getting a great push. Seth Rollins is over as he's ever been. You have a lot going on there already. Where does he belong on that card? How about you, E?
You know, when I think about SmackDown right now, it was very top heavy. Might be working. You know, you take Roman off the show right now, right? He's gone for, I don't know, what, 4 or 5 months, something like that. Matt, you mentioned that he wasn't on these covers for some of these PLEs.
Yeah, he has not been announced for any PLE that is on sale right now. So they've gone all the way up to November, no Roman. So that's at least 3 months, allegedly. He's not going to be on any of these PLEs.
And who's the top guy right now on SmackDown? Is it LA Knight? You know, I actually don't know who the actual top guy is. So there's definitely a spot for him there, especially if Roman is, you know, he's only going to wrestle maybe every couple of months. He's going to, you know, he's only going to defend the championship every, 6 months. So there's definitely there's a position there that he can fill. But also you think about Raw. Raw's a 3-hour show. And this is one thing I appreciate watching Raw under the Triple H era, is that he's trying to utilize more of the roster to fill time instead of spreading out the same 10 people across 3 hours of television, really stretching out promos, stretching out matches. He's trying to fill that card up. So there's definitely a lot of real estate available to him. Because I think about, the top guys. You got Roman, right, who's a part-timer. You got Brock, who's a part-timer. Next you got, Cody, big time. That's my man, Cody. If you don't know Ryan, I love me some Cody.
We getting to him.
Then you got Seth, who I think is much further down the pole than a Cody, a Brock, and a Roman. Then after him, you got everybody else. CM Punk can go right on top of Seth. He can be right in that metric for a short period of time, maybe just to get some of those other guys over, because Punk is 44 years old, right? The timer is ticking for him. He's looking like Papa Punk in AEW, right? So there's definitely opportunity for him.
So I'm going to have to, I said I don't want on the other show, I don't want him coming to the WWE. Just for purposes, I'm going to entertain this conversation here. If Punk does come back to WWE, you can actually put him with anybody. The beauty of CM Punk, so now I'm about to kind of eat my words here. He is a smart, veteran, seasoned wrestler. He knows how to put a match together. He knows how to engage the crowd. Like Matt said before, he's just a smart person. He knows how to do this. You can pair him up with anybody. Say top heavy, you can pair him up with Roman. You can bring him all the way down to somebody like a Seth. And I actually think Seth is actually a top tier guy, but I'm just saying you could throw him in there with Jew. He is so versatile that CM Punk could work with anybody and make any storyline better and can make that actual campaign or program better. So that might be kind of a cheap answer, but Punk is just that good in the ring that you could pair him with anybody.
Well, and the thing too, Ryan, if you think about the way WWE typically does business, when they have big stars, Roman, Goldberg, Brock, Cody, when they come in, there is I say Roman now, not when he was with the Shield, but when they come in, there is a distinct role for them. They just don't sign top talent and say, we'll figure it out when you get here. No, it's typically, you're going to come in and here's your program, because they're really into telling stories. If you look at Punk, it is so many ready-made stories. Did we forget? He's basically the one that put the Shield together. oh my God, is there not a story there with Roman and Heyman? You can run that for 6 months. Okay, so now we just took care of, if he shows up in November at the end of Survivor Series, that takes you to WrestleMania. If you wanted to do that. Think about the stories that they have that they could use with Cody and Punk. Oh my God. The place you left, I had to come save. There is just so much they can use with that. That can run you 4 to 5 months. Seth and Punk. The bar was back and forth in interviews, where Seth said he's a cancer. There is so much they can bring there too. So you're talking, if they were to bring him in there, you're talking 2 years of ready-made stories right off the bat. But then I guess the next question would be, do they need them? Do they need Punk? They don't need Punk. I think they needed Cody. Cody was completely different.
Well, Cody wanted to come home
EVP,
too, right?
Correct. But you look at it and you say, all right, we need you, Cody. I don't know. I don't think they need Punk, but boy, would that be a blow to AEW? And would that sell a ton of merch and ticket sales if he's back in WWE?
I think that there's definitely money to be made. I agree with you, Matt, and I agree with you too, Rhodesia. They don't need him, and I don't really think, he's had his go, right? You had an opportunity here, you had an opportunity there. They brought you back. What happens when CM Punk doesn't get what he wants in WWE? And I'm confident that Triple H has the wherewithal to manage him. But do you even just want to deal with that? Oh man, CM Punk's outside. All right, let him in. What does he want? Do you want to deal with that? But as we transition, because you did bring up Cody, and I wanted to promise you, E, because we are going to talk some Cody on this show, because I'm high on Cody too.
Hey, let's go.
I want to know a couple things. Leaving AEW, the place that arguably he, along with the Young Bucks created, to come back and chase the WWE Championship, he finds himself in a position where that's probably not, and we'll talk about later what we think is going to happen. Probably not a direct possibility, but we had the main event at WrestleMania, which, I didn't think he was going to win that match, but the WWE did a very great job of making you think as hard as they could that he possibly could finish the story.
Good job, Ryan. I am glad, Ryan, that you understood.
And you didn't fall for it.
You didn't fall for the banana in the tailpipe, and you knew it was not Cody's time yet. He had to go through some more bumps to get to that top of the mountain. This guy, E here, tried to tell us every single week, Cody's winning at WrestleMania. And this man was so depressed, probably up until like June or July. He wasn't the same Eshaun on our show. He kind of got out of his funk a little bit. But I personally thought that the end of WrestleMania Night 2 was the end of the best ending in the history of any match in WWE history.
No, it was the beginning of the end of the Bloodline. That's why you're crapping on Bloodline now, is because you had one crappy finish at a WrestleMania, and now it was the end of the Bloodline. I think it started with Cody.
So Cody did achieve something.
He just didn't win the championship.
he finished the chapter.
And you know what? Oh my God. This is why Cody and I are on the same page, because he told Roman what was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
He said like, hey, they going to start leaving you. And what you going to do? And look, we got main event Jey Uso on Raw.
Mm-hmm.
I guess Jimmy went back to him. I don't know what's going on, but it's some fractures. It ain't right. So Cody, he's ahead of his time.
Clairvoyant Cody, I call him the pyromaniac because he has at least 2 sets of pyro when he comes out there.
Yep.
But I really want to give Cody his flowers, because he took his own, and I don't know who else has done this better than Cody. He took his own career and turned it around to his benefit, right? He knew. And did you watch the Becoming Nightmare? I remember the title.
Oh my gosh.
So well put together.
Yep.
Becoming Cody Rhodes, such
Incredible.
a great, so well put together, such a great story. He knew, he was at his ceiling his first run there. Created his own gimmick, and it was so good. Now Vince McMahon doesn't like bring in gimmicks he doesn't come up with, or whoever was in charge of bringing them back. Comes in, brings his own gimmick back with him, and it's just, that night when he appeared out of the little elevator coming up onto the stage against Seth was, we tend to know what things are going to happen, but that still gave me a little bit of chills seeing that moment.
And it was crazy too, Ryan, when he talked about he thought he may get booed. And it's so crazy to hear all these just professional athletes, if they get injured or they leave to come back, home to the team they were with before, and they kind of say the same thing. What if I'm not the same? What if they don't remember me? What if I get booed? It's like, Cody, dude, you're coming home, man. Like, there is no way you were going to get booed in front of that WrestleMania crowd. To me, that's just fascinating that they have that thought a lot of times.
Now, being booed at WrestleMania, for sure, I don't think anybody would have booed him. But I'm not going to act like when I first saw him back on Raw that I was actually happy. I don't think we were recording pods at that time. But Matt knew I was absolutely pissed off at him. I think the only other time I was more pissed off was when Undertaker lost to Brock in WrestleMania. The streak was broken. I was livid, Ryan. I was so pissed. And of course, Matt, being a sound mind and a reasonable mind, hey, listen. This is a story here. He has to go back. He has to win this. But no, you practically tore that company down. He didn't tear it, but to go build a new one. You built your new company on the foundation of FWWE. And then all of a sudden, I'm for you. I'm rocking AEW now too, because FWWE. Next thing I know, I look up, you done went back to your ex-boyfriend.
Rhodesia worked herself into a shoot, is what that was. I
absolutely worked myself into a shoot. I was livid for probably, maybe a good couple months. Until I had to see the bigger picture.
Relax. You gotta relax.
I was angry. Of course, now going back to watching Becoming Cody Rhodes or Becoming the Nightmare, whatever it's called. So beautifully done. Like, I think of like the 30 for 30s that they have. It almost felt like that. It was such a beautiful piece of work, and it brought it full circle. And no one who probably felt like I felt in the beginning should not feel that same way after watching that, because I saw me and him, not an actual wrestler, but yeah, you left home. You thought you wanted to go create your own future, but in the end of the day, it's okay to still want to be home. It's still okay to do that and not to forget what your roots are. And now you're even bigger and better. And what you said as far as him going out, proving to himself, he even wrote down all the matches he wanted to have and all his independence and all this in the independent wrestling scene. I commend him. You go from making WWE money to 200 people, 50 people in an arena. That has to do something to you, your psycho, like you're in your psyche. And for him to actually go and do that and want to do that, he had a point to prove to himself. And I am happy that he was able to do that.
You know what a strange thing is, Ryan? I shared this with Matt and Rhodesia. As big of a fan of Cody as I am, I haven't seen that documentary yet. It's really strange.
We trashed him for that too.
Yeah. You gotta watch it. You gotta watch it, man.
Maybe you already know everything that's already in it, but just the way that it's put together, man, you'll appreciate it, 1,000 times more.
Yeah, I'm not really a big documentary guy, even though I love like the Dark Side of the Ring stuff for some reason. But you're right. The thing is, I knew Cody's story. One thing I'll share with you, I mentioned like my first major experience at a wrestling show was WrestleMania in Dallas. I actually met Cody Rhodes for the first time at that fan access, and he was Stardust.
Right.
I think he would play Stardust at Mania.
Yeah, we were there too.
He came to the show. Oh, you were? Okay, yeah, he was Cody Rhodes. And and if you go to a WrestleMania, it's kind of like a rat race, right? It's kind of like, it's just like rats in a maze. But in his line, it was like no one in his line. So I don't know if people didn't know he was there, or if people didn't know who he was because he was playing Stardust at the time. But I was so excited, right? And I was quietly excited too. I don't think my wife even knew how excited I was. I was so excited. I was kind of doing like this little quiet, determined walk to hurry up and get into his line. I thought maybe people would see that Cody was over here and they'd start rushing over there. So I got to meet him, and I couldn't really talk to him. So somehow I managed to stumble out, "Hey, when are you gonna come back as Cody?" And he kind of looked at me.
He's like, Mark."
And he kind of looked at me strangely. He's about to sign his autograph, and then he kind of stopped and looked at me. And then he looked down and signed the autograph. He's like, "Hey man, it's not for a lack of trying." And then a couple months later, he quits WWE, gets his release, and the whole Cody Rhodes, the nightmare begins. And as a fan of his, to know that he bet on himself, right? He didn't want to settle for, Stardust or being in the mid card. He wanted more from himself.
Right.
And I think that's a great story for anyone. Like, hey, bet on yourself.
Mhm.
Don't settle for what you think people are giving you or what they think your ceiling is.
Right.
Right. And for him, he had no ceiling and he saw himself in a certain way and he wanted to get there by hook or crook somewhere else. And so for him to put himself in a position to where the owner of a company comes to your house to sign you, that's big, because Vince isn't going to Kevin Owens' house to sign him to a NXT deal, or Nakamura, or he's not going to any of these guys' houses to convince them to come back or to work for his company. But he went to Cody's house.
Mm-hmm.
Got on the jet.
Vince may be in Chicago right now. We don't know.
Hey, he might be.
He may be in Chicago.
Or hey, he's still laid up from that back surgery he had, right? When he trying to duck the feds, ain't he?
Allegedly.
That's exactly
Yeah,
what
right?
it is.
He's
went
still
spinal.
ducking
He
the
said
feds.
spinal.
Yeah,
The
he
feds
ain't.
investigating him. Spinal.
Yeah,
Triple
he
H
laying
giving
low.
him
He
a
might
little
have hit
bit more sleeping pills, man. Go ahead, take another nap. I got this, man.
he might have hit him up on the pager, right? He might have
Right.
pull out the pager and hit him up on that. But yeah, just for me, just to know his story, to be proud of him and betting on himself to get the position that he is, because I'm really surprised in a lot of ways that Cody is as over as he is in WWE playing that type of character, man. He is that 1980s white meat vanilla baby face, right? True and true. He is the Dudley Do-Good character, and it's over like Rover. So I love it. Every single bit of it.
Yeah. Nothing but love for Cody, obviously. Maybe he'll finish the story, a little bit later on, a lot of bit later on. I don't know. We'll talk about that. But pivoting,
Ryan, real quick, let me ask you about Cody. Do you think he would be as popular right now if he would have beat Roman at WrestleMania?
Yes, I do. I think that obviously there's a ceiling, but when you eclipse your moment at WrestleMania, and it depends on what they had planned, what they would have had planned for him as a champion, right? You got to make sure your champion stays not over, but he would have had the ability to do that. I mean, that momentum, that was the strongest momentum pushing someone who was not going to get the title that I can really remember, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
But
That's a good clip. Look, wow, yeah, maybe.
See, I really thought Drew was gonna win. I really thought in Cardiff, I thought he was gonna win, and when he didn't, I said, "Okay, got it."
That would be like a close second or third, because a lot of people on Twitter was in arms when Drew didn't win that. You may have to go back, Ryan, to like Dusty Rhodes. I mean, you may have to go back like 20, 30 years for someone where you say like, yep, this is their moment, and they didn't get it and they haven't gotten it yet. Even Rock, the 1 year at WrestleMania, where everybody just knew he was winning the title, they pulled back from it, and then they had him winning at Backlash a month later. At least he got it a month later.
Right.
This one, he hasn't gotten it yet, but I'm actually the opposite. I think that he wouldn't be as over right now with the fans. There would have been starting some fatigue or some boos. I don't think it would be like 60-40 or 50-50 or anything like that. But right now, he's not getting a boo in any arena he's in. And I think that looks a little different if he would have came in the way he did, beat Roman, and now he's off to the races. I think it just looks a little different.
Well, I'm glad you brought up Dusty, because that is the story, right? We have to think back, and the last person we can think of is Dusty. And the picture that Cody has on the frame, because he thought it happened and it really didn't. So that really fuels him and pushes him. And I think that gets the fans behind him. And it's really hard to follow a star like Dusty as, the son or daughter of, Charlotte's done a great job, obviously, following Ric Flair, but that's not very easy, right?
Not at all.
And he is maximizing that opportunity. You may be right. Maybe he might have flamed out. He wouldn't have flamed out a pyro, though. He would have had a ton of pyro after he won the championship. I'll tell you that right there. But that remains to be seen. That remains to be seen for sure. But we pivot to the prediction that Cody made, about the dissension, the breakup, the fallout of the bloodline. We're seeing it, and kind of every new story we're introduced to every week. I always think about seeing Jay Uso and Jimmy and Solo were there at Wale Mania at WrestleMania. And Jay pretty much promised there's a lot more story here to be told, so stay tuned. Sometimes I'm not exactly sure where we're going, which might be, I guess, a good thing to keep me on my toes a little bit. But how are we feeling about where the Bloodline is headed lately? We'll start with Matt.
My, how this conversation.
We'll start with Rhodesia. Sorry.
No. Matt could go, but I'm just saying, my, how this conversation would sound a month ago versus today.
If we would have had this conversation a week before SummerSlam, it would have been Skittles and rainbows. Everything is beautiful. They can't miss. And they have arguably missed every week since SummerSlam. I think Jay going to Raw is fantastic. I think this is also their way of keeping Jay and Jimmy separate until Mania. So we are going to get brother versus brother in Philly this year because it doesn't make sense to not do that now. But they've sputtered on the SmackDown side. And you would say, okay, like, well, how did you sputter if you planned this? Because everything that we've heard was Cody was never going to win at WrestleMania. And the Brock feud was set in stone weeks before WrestleMania. So that means you had that locked down already. Okay, we have Cody's plans, going to take him to another level, and this goes through SummerSlam. Fantastic. It feels like right now they are going by a week to week on SmackDown. Jimmy is the one that started this with the kick to Roman. Now he's okay with not being kicked out of the Bloodline. This is the first time that they've done things that just doesn't make sense in this story. And the good thing about wrestling is they can always erase it and do something this week. And we're like, oh, okay, they course corrected. But this is the first time that I can ever remember from the Bloodline story where I'm like, you know what? This isn't the best right now. And knowing that now Jay is away from Jimmy. Okay, so they are running this until WrestleMania. Okay, so y'all got 6 months or whatever it is of TV with a champion that's not on television. With Cody, we'll see if he's traded to SmackDown, and maybe that's why Jay's on Raw. But even if that's the case, and you still wait to do Roman and Cody at Mania, how does the next 6 months look on SmackDown TV? And that's kind of scary to think about.
Isn't Philly known as the city of brotherly love?
Yeah, city of brotherly love.
Yep.
Wow, that's
there
a great point.
There you go. That guy
There
Jimmy
you
and
go.
Jay built right there. I could see it already. I scratching my head. Again, I don't really understand what's happening with the Bloodline up until this point, up until SummerSlam. They didn't fail me. They haven't failed me, so I'm still going to give them the luxury of trying to keep me engaged. But I am completely like, what the F? I'm not understanding what's happening now. But again, all great things doesn't last forever. So you just take it in stride. And again, like Matt just said, this is wrestling. You could just write again or keep writing. So, but if you asked me this a month ago, oh, Ryan, I'd be up here telling you my 5 favorite wrestlers is Dylan, Roman. Now it's like, okay, Roman doesn't even exist right now. But
yeah, I like Jay on Raw. Man, I was telling Matt and Rhodesia the other day on our pod that he came out there like a superstar. He had that place rocking. You know, he brought that crowd alive like an old school hip hop concert, man. He had them doing the wave and the music was hitting. It was powerful. And Matt was making fun of him because he was running out of oxygen, right? When he's trying for him to hit the promo, right? He was gassed.
Yeah, boy was blown to the gills.
Yeah,
but I like that. I like that. That's real, right? Because he was hit with emotion. Now you feel the emotion through the television screen when he came out there. I love that. Now you talk about on the SmackDown side. I don't know what's going on with Jimmy and Solo. Roman's not there. The Bloodline seems to be kind of discombobulated right now, to say the least. And when you go backwards and listen to Roman saying, you know, this is steak dinner, this ain't fast food, whatever the comment he made after Mania, man, I don't know what kind of steak dinner this is right now.
I'm vegetarian.
It ain't good, right? Like it needs. Hey, pass me some A1 or something because it ain't working.
Spice it up, man. Some Himalayan salt.
For sure.
Yeah, I think they brought Jay back too early. Number one, I get the setting though. You know,
yeah, I see that
premium live event. You got Cody Rhodes passing it along. I could do a little bit without the Grayson Waller effect. I can do a little bit more with the Parallax Effect.
I love
but,
it.
I like that.
I think it was a little too early, because even though you knew the little wrestling rumors outside the wrestling world had no weight, you still got to let the people sit. Like, Jay quit. What's he gonna do? Where's he gonna go? I mean, we all know, what's building, what's coming back, but you got to let that fester in the fans a little bit longer than 2 weeks or whatever it was, in my humble opinion. And as far as Jimmy is concerned, now crossing over, coming back, I guess they do have a little saving grace on what Solo told him about, you're not out until we say you're out, or whatever whatever he said. They may have a little bit there. But yeah, I am unfortunately confused, because the whole story, and I was even sending, YouTube synopsis to people who don't even watch wrestling. Like, I bet you I can get you interested. Check out this Bloodline saga.
Right.
Oh my goodness,
Right.
they deserve an Emmy.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
it's something I hope that they can rekindle somehow.
Is there
you
any
have
chance?
Heyman. You will. You have Heyman.
Is there any chance Roman beats Hogan's record?
I hope
Is
so.
there a world where they have Roman hold on to the title until next September to clear Hogan off of the top? Now Roman is the top, and then Cody gets the belt after that.
Wrestling gods, if you're listening, please free my mind of the Immortal One. Free my mind of the Bret Hart career tried to be stopper. Free my mind of the one they call Hulk. I said it. Iron Sheik's not around to say it anymore. I said it. Free my mind of this guy. Hey, Hulk Hogan, what did Booker T say? Roman is coming for you, sucker.
And I think this is probably the only opportunity in our time, in modern era, that we will ever get. Nobody's going to hold the title again for like 4+ years. Not anytime soon. I really think that they may be having some discussions
about this.
You know what? Nobody's ever going to get this close. Do we want to have that top person be Hulk Hogan? Well, I guess it still be Bruno. Take Bruno out. Do we want that top person to be Hogan? Do we want that top person to be Roman Reigns? That we're putting up $1 billion a year in money with him being on top. That could be a thing.
I didn't even think about that. If you're talking about you're ready, if we're conceding that Roman would drop at the earliest Mania, then what is another 6 months?
5 months. That's what I'm saying.
Whoa.
Something about.
How about you?
He doesn't have to defend it, right? He can just sit home for another 6 months or whatever it is, and beat the streak. It's a sad thing, right? Because we're all from culture, and it what Hogan did, the video, and then the fact that the half apologies afterwards, it kind of hurt me as a young E, because I was a huge Hogan guy back in the day. So when we talk about getting rid of Hogan, I remember, I said Ricky Steamboat was the first one, but the next one was Hawk. I was a Hawkamaniac. I remember watching on this 13-inch TV. It was Hulk Hogan versus, I believe it was Bob Orton Jr. I think it was Bob Orton Jr. And Bob Orton Jr. was beating Hulk down through the whole match. Man, I was crying. I'm like, come on, Hulk. I'm trying to wheel Hulk through the match. And then, when we got down to like the end when he's hawking up and he's going through the paces, I'm like right there with him. I'm like, get him. I'm jumping up and down. I think that's the moment I remember actually being that excited and being that energized for a wrestling match, was in that moment. I was right there with him. And then when he hit that leg drop and he got that 1, 2, 3, I mean, you would think there was like 1,000 kids in that room, because I was elated, right? And so I have so many fond memories of Hawk from my childhood, and then he just ruined it, just ruined it for me. And I haven't been able to look at Hogan since then. And in a lot of ways, it kind of, for me, it just destroyed like his legacy for me. Like, right. So like in some ways I feel hurt as a fan, like, man, like, we got to erase this awesome legacy, because Hawk really did help put the WWF, and I think even wrestling, on the map.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt about that.
Back then. right?
The majority of people that watch now is due to Hogan. It
Right.
may not be
Hogan.
for them, but it could be because their parents watched them or their cousin watched them, and now they're
Yeah.
into it. And it sucks, man. It really sucks when all you had to do was give a proper apology.
Right.
And that's not saying that it would have went away.
No,
But like the first time I ever shed tears for wrestling was when it was the Hebners, where Ted DiBiase paid him off, and it was
Yeah.
the bet,
I remember that.
Saturday night's main event. I boo-hoo, cried.
So
I
was
think I
that
was
the
cousin
first
too.
time that you found out that they were twins or
Oh, yeah.
brothers?
You never
Like,
knew.
this was-
You
okay,
never
you
knew.
never
Yeah,
knew.
we
You
never knew.
knew.
Yeah, we
Okay.
never
No
knew.
one
never
Okay.
knew.
Yeah.
no one knew.
And the story they told was like it was plastic surgery. They weren't twins. Like that's how much money a $1 million man had. But
Got
you
it.
think about that, and I actually met Hogan as an adult. Super cool, it seemed like. And not to say he's not, right? But because him and Hogan, I think, are still cool or cordial. But it's like you had an opportunity to do something. And when you got somebody like Kofi, who Kofi loves everybody. I've never heard Kofi having an issue with anyone. Kofi's kind of like, I'm good on you. When Booker T is like, and Booker speaks his mind, but we've also never heard anybody say like, oh, Booker's super hard on people or
Right.
Booker doesn't, you know what I mean? Like it's none of that. You're just like, okay, well now I know where we are with it. And every time they trot him back out and I hear that music, I'm just like, dude, go home, leave. Like, I don't know why you're still here.
Yeah,
It sucks.
he gets a mixture of boos every time he's on the screen.
Yeah. And those aren't like affectionate boos. Those aren't Kurt Angle boos. Those aren't John Cena
Right.
boos. Those are like, bro,
Get up out
we're
of
done
here.
with you, man.
Yeah.
We don't need you introducing any more live events. We've had it. Enough.
Exactly.
Who who takes the title off of Roman? Cody?
I'm gonna go ahead and say, who else but Cody? It's just a matter of when. And so for me, I know Matt mentioned he could possibly get drafted to a SmackDown. Like, I don't know what the financial means are for USA and for Fox, but if I'm USA, I love Jay, but I'm not trading Jay for Cody. Like, no, Cody, you right here, baby. Hey, Jay, welcome. But Cody, you right here next to the hip. You're not going nowhere. And I just don't know how you keep Cody and Roman apart for that long if they're on the same brand, right? How long can Roman deal with the bloodline while also ducking like Cody? It's a lot easier. They're not on the two different brands, and they can bring them together at some point in some other kind of fashion, right? You got elimination chambers. There's an opportunity for a championship run. He can win the Rumble again. There's a lot of different ways for Cody to get into the title picture, but it'll be a little bit more far fetched that they're allowing them not to touch for like whatever 6 months or whatever it is on the same brand.
I'm sitting here trying to figure out the answer to that question to try to outsmart the thinking of what booking really is. It got to be Cody. It just has to be Cody. It has to take it off of Roman. I can dream book and say that The Rock will come back and take the head of the table and the championship. But again, what does that do for wrestling? Nothing. You know, as far as being that champion, that's not going to do anything. Now, yeah, if it was the head of the table, that's something different because that's a family thing. But it has to be Cody.
Yeah, you think about Cody's story, and is Cody's story winning the championship his dad never won, or is Cody's story beating Roman for the championship that his dad never won? I think it's the first. I don't think he's not attached to Roman's hip. He doesn't have to beat Roman for that title for us to feel like, man, he finished the story. Awesome. But that's the smart money to do that. Now, if I want to take an outside, if I was betting and I'll say, okay, this is probably, the second person at plus 500 odds, I would go solo to beat him. And then the next person that if it's like plus 1,000 odds, I would probably go Gunther.
I got a 2,000 plus odds.
Who's that?
CM Punk, and it's going to be called the Real Undisputed Championship.
Let's go, Punk. Let's go, Phil.
CM Punk has made his way back to the main event picture. Wow. We are in the Twilight
Gunther.
Zone.
I like Gunther. Yep, give me that.
Gunther?
Gunta. I
Give me
love
him.
the way Samantha Irvin announces him too. It really puts him way over the top too. I wasn't sold on Gunta early on, but I am now for sure. Samantha
You
has
and me
a lot to
both,
do with
brother.
that.
You and me both, man. I always say, like, when they changed his name, for one, I was all about Fat Walter. I'm like, this guy, when he finally goes in against Brock and Keith Lee at the time and Roman, I'm like, man, this is going to be great. Because that's all I knew was Fat Walter. He started dropping that weight and they changed his name. I was like, I don't like Fit Gunther. I don't like this guy. And I guess Vince didn't either. And he was almost out of here last July, but he made a believer out of all of us. He is on a run. And I love his matches so much because he doesn't have a finish. He just beats you until he wins. And whatever that may be, if that's a power bomb, if that is a clothesline,
Whatever
if that
it
is a
takes.
super stiff
Yeah.
body slam. So he doesn't have a cadence to, you can tell when the finish is coming because he'll string along some moves, but he doesn't have that typical pattern to the end of his matches. And it's fantastic.
Right. It kind of keeps you on your toes a little bit. And I kind of like the multiple ways to finish the match and not having a true finisher because, you know, we all know it's that one thing you can kick out of versus all the other times you got dumped on your head and hit with, you know, all the kitchen tools and appliances and all that stuff. So I like that a lot. E, you going with Cody to the throne? I mean, I guess I shouldn't have to reiterate or ask. I think that should be a given, right?
Cody all day. Gotta be.
I mean, Cody's definitely the obvious answer. I love the Gunta prediction as well too. But I think lost in the shuffle here has been Seth Rollins, even though he has a title. We saw at WrestleMania and every event. I mean, at SummerSlam, probably you saw the same thing. They won't stop chanting Seth's theme until they get cut off. Like it'll just keep going all night. And I felt that at WrestleMania because I was one of the ones doing it. As well too. So I think, you know, I understand that, you know, he has a title. They found a way to make him happy, I guess, but I think he's getting a little bit lost in the shuffle here.
So when you say he's lost in the shuffle, are you saying you want to see another program with them two, with both of them being champions, with just Roman being the champion? What in your perfect world with that, what would that look like?
I like his interactions with Roman a lot. I like the story that they told. Was it at the Royal Rumble over a year ago? I think you put Seth in. First of all, he puts in good matches. I like that they, you know, put him back with Finn Balor and kind of continue that story that got cut off a while ago as well too. But I think just when we talk about the top of the top, you know, we talk a lot of Cody, we talk a lot of Roman. We talk a lot of Brock out of respect, even though he's mainly putting, and I like that about Brock right now, that he's putting folks over. He's doing jobs. Something that people, you know, that don't really know him said he would never do. So I like that, but I just think Seth should be mentioned a little bit more, I guess.
Okay, that's fair.
I would say with Seth, and this is just kind of like I don't even want to call it a weird time in wrestling, but when what is it called? The heavyweight championship, when it first came out, I really did want Finn to win it. But it was almost Seth's championship to have anyways, because again, he has busted his ass over the last 2 to 3 years being that workhorse there. I always felt Seth was a top tier, but then you get people who are Roman and you get Cody that came in, and these are just two, and I mentioned it on our pod last week, that these are two larger than lives. Like, we remember when Vince would say, no one is bigger than the WWE. And now we finally got two people that maybe they're not bigger than the WWE, but they damn near close to being bigger than WWE in Roman and Cody. So you get someone like Seth, who will probably never be bigger than WWE. And he just seems like he's so far away from the top. But I think Seth is top tier. I absolutely love Seth. Besides Orange Cassidy, I had said for years that Seth should have been the MVP. He has been the workhorse of the wrestling.
You know, Seth Rollins is like the modern day Macho Man Randy Savage.
Yep.
Right? He's not quite Hulk Hogan. He wasn't able to be the Ultimate Warrior, right? But he's always in the title picture. He's always a credible threat to any world championship match. He's somebody you can plug in and out of any situation. He's going to excel. He's going to give you a great match. People care about him. But for some reason, he's just not thought of in that same regards as other big names.
I'll take that as a compliment, though. Yeah, don't call me Hulk Hogan. Don't call me Ultimate Warrior. I'll take the Macho Man over those two.
But I'm curious, Ryan, because Matt and Rhodesia asked a question some time back. They said, "Is Seth Rollins over, or is his song over?"
Seth Rollins is over. Yeah, most definitely. And I think coming out of the Shield, you had 3 great performers in their own right. And Seth was the one who kind of got the head start, right away. They was having a little bit of trouble. And I don't think this was Roman's fault. I think this was a booking thing because they were really trying to, make him John Cena 2.0, and the fans just didn't want that.
They will not take it.
But Seth really showed himself early. And I will say this, I wasn't that big on Seth before him because I thought he was a little bit reckless in the ring. And Seth told a story about how he had met Bret Hart. I have to throw Bret in these conversations. I don't know why. And how he had addressed how Bret had said some things like, "You're not too safe in the ring." And that really hurt Seth because Seth had really looked up to Bret. But they were able to come together and kind of talk about it. But I felt the same way early on. And then he continued to, like Rhodesia said, just be a very hard worker and prove to me that, he deserves to be right there with the Codys and the Romans. You really have one title. You got 2 titles, but you have one wherever you ask pretty much anybody, and that's the one that they want. So it's really, really hard to revolve several names and keep them all at a very heightened state all at the same time, especially when you got someone with the momentum like Cody Rhodes.
And, I think with Seth is so good in the ring. There's been times where they just haven't given him a great story or even a defined character. For years, he was known as, he would come out and say, before they actually changed his name to Seth Freakin Rollins, he would say, "I'm Seth Freakin Rollins." What does that mean?
Right.
And that was like his gimmick. Burn it down.
Yeah.
Okay. I remember from the one feud of Burn It Down, but then it's now in your song. What does that mean? The people in wrestling that are most over are people that have clearly defined stories and characters. If you were asking me right now, like, what is Roman? We all know what Roman is. We all know what Cody's whole thing is right now. If you go to AEW, who MJF is. Who Kenny Omega is. You look at Seth and you say, okay, you dress crazy, you laugh, and now people sing. That's not enough to eclipse Cody's story or Roman's story, or even hell, right now, that's not enough to eclipse LA Knight's story. So I don't think it has anything to do with him. We know he can go in and have a 5-star match with anybody 5 times out of the week and twice on Sunday. But it's they've missed with him at times of telling me, who is this guy and why should I care about him? I think that's why we maybe don't look at him like
all he really needed to say when they asked him about the Seth Freakin Rollins question is, "Hey, I got it from the That's Freakin Wrestling Podcast." Boom, problem solved.
There we go, baby.
Over. He's over.
Let him know.
But,
my man.
Shout out to you, Seth.
My man.
But yeah, Seth moving forward, we'll see who challenges him and who works with him. But what about, you mentioned LA Knight, right? Another great story as well too. Not well thought of. They're thinking about making him a manager and whatnot, and he gets the chance to just go out and speak to the fans. How we feel about LA Knight?
Hottest guy in the company by far, and that excludes nobody. He's hotter than Cody. He's hotter than Roman. Roman's not around, but he's hotter than everybody. I think I wouldn't have said this, and this is why they get paid the big bucks. They know better than we do. We've been clamoring for LA Knight since January. He was done with Bray. Rest in peace to Bray in January, February. And then he was in a state of just like in pause. Didn't have a match at WrestleMania. And then we kept hearing, okay, it's coming. And it was like, no, it's never happening. And then we finally got it right around Survivor or SummerSlam. And now we're on that trajectory. And not that Miz exposed him, but Miz proved that he's got a little more ways to go to carry a feud in the way we see him at as of right now on the microphone. Miz got him. In those two head-to-head microphone battles, Miz got him. He talks about it a lot of he's not the strongest in ring. He'll get you a decent match, but I don't think we were ever going to probably walk away and just say, man, you know who had the match of the night? LA Knight. That was a 4.5 star, 5-star classic match. I don't know if he's that guy, but you don't have to be that guy. We know that.
Right.
But I think now I'm starting to see, okay, yep, slow and steady wins the race with LA Knight. But I would, if I was cashing my chips in, yep, I think he can be the top guy on SmackDown, and I think that business will stay through the roof with him being your top guy.
Well, so for me, LA Knight, I was not an LA Knight fan, but my reason was because I was tired of getting my feelings broken and my feelings hurt, because ever since what you said, January, I'm like, yep, here's LA Knight. Yeah, rah, rah, cheer, cheer. How you going to have a WrestleMania in LA without LA Knight? Nope, didn't get nothing. Didn't see him at all. Ghost.
Yeah, that was wrong.
And then again, time after time, okay, no, this is the push. This is the push. This is the push. This is the push. Nope. And then finally he had something with B-Fab, and I knew he liked the ladies, the chocolate ladies. And that's when I became a fan of LA Knight, because he liked the sisters.
Every time you tell that story, it's like, what?
LA Knight came home, man. He came home.
Yeah. He could turn the hot dogs over on the grill at the barbecue. That's it though. He can't cook it. He can just like turn the hot dogs over.
Yeah, that's enough to get him in though. That's enough to get him in.
Yep.
Hey, he might have got some seasoning packs in that fanny pack that he be wearing, man. You never know, right?
But
I'm a big LA Knight fan, and he actually grew on me because I've been aware of him for quite some time. I've seen his stuff in Impact and NWA, and then even in NXT. It's just that his work on the microphone, and I think his in-ring has been much improved. I think he was very slow in probably in NXT. Like his matches they weren't even just there. They were kind of snooze fests for me. I just think he's continued to improve, and that was the time. He's not a young whippersnapper either.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I think he's in his early 40s. He's finally getting his big break, and he deserves it, because how many people can say they're over with the crowd, right? Like when he opens his mouth and he talks, I mean, the crowd is with every catchphrase. They're right with him in every single moment he is in the ring. So I expect big things from him. And that was a great time for him. If you think about it in hindsight, it might have been a nice time for him to start now his ascension, because, right, we don't have Roman. Like right now, LA Knight has a lot of real estate to kind of operate and do his thing. Now has Miz outperformed him on the microphone? Maybe. But Miz, I think, is just really underappreciated by the entire wrestling community.
Very much so.
Solid. He is great on the mic. He's not just okay, he is great on the microphone. I remember the first time I really, really appreciated Miz on the mic was when he was feuding with Bryan Danielson on Smack Talks. Years ago, and they had that after Smack. I mean, he cut this amazing promo on Danielson that night, and there's so much fire, so much piss and vinegar.
But
so
that was a shoot,
Miz
right?
has it.
Yeah,
I think it's a lot of shoot in his promo.
Yeah, he was. Danielson egged him on a little bit though. I mean, I don't blame Miz.
Because Danielson was shooting on him, right? He was shooting on him, but yeah, LA Knight, he definitely has it. I wonder what his ceiling is, though. Like, can you really see him as a world champion, Ryan?
You know, the jury is still out there. I think he's a really fantastic, like you said, on the mic and storytelling outside of the ring. I'm waiting for him to tell me that story inside the ring.
Yeah.
It hasn't quite happened yet. I think the Money in the Bank would have been a good moment for him, but you know, the powers that be decided that he wasn't ready yet, and maybe they're right. By the way, I do like that what the Judgment Day is doing with all the hardware they're collecting, and all that kind of stuff too. So I'll be remiss to not mention that. But yeah, I don't know yet. The jury's still out for me, and I don't want to be kind of fouling that pitch off, but I think he has the following to be a champion. Just tell me that story in the ring, and I'm sold.
Mm-hmm.
Before we leave this topic, it just came up in my head how y'all said Miz, which I'm saying it too. Miz ate him alive. I'm going to say it that much. I mean, he really gave it to him. But the last time I felt that way of almost that uncomfortable feeling was when it was John Cena and Roman. And John Cena ate into Roman. And what happened out of that? It just made Roman a better person, a better character. So I think with someone like a LA Knight who's been in a ring, who's been in a mic feud back and forth with one of the greatest to do it in The Miz, I think this is only going to make LA Knight better.
Agreed. So we move on from LA Knight. We mentioned the Judgment Day, so I want to touch on them because they've been putting in. I mean, Dominic Mysterio, man.
Boo.
Dominic Mysterio for me. Oh my! We got some boos happening. That means he is doing his job. What we thinking, Matt?
Have we ever seen in a period of a year, 12 months? Because remember, he turned in Cardiff a year ago.
Okay.
On Edge and Ray. Have we ever seen a wrestler in a year go from what Dom was then to what he is right now? I thought about it a few days ago. I can't think of anyone that was so treading water. He needs to go down to NXT to figure out his character. He can't work the best in the ring. Man, it's been years. What are they doing with him? To him being one of the MVPs of the entire promotion. I can't think of anybody else.
I can't think of it either. But when he talks and the whole crowd boos him, it's so to another level, even more than what MJF gets before he became a good guy. As soon as he's done with the mic and he passes it on to the next Judgment Day person who's also a bad person, it stops. Instantly. It just like instantly stops. I mean, he gets so much, what you call it, missile heat, what you call it?
Heat. Red hot heat, boy, white heat.
Like, for real.
Dominic used to trip me out early on in Judgment Day. And he would start with his promos. I wish Mommy was here.
Yeah.
If Mommy was here, like that was, it was like he was like this smitten like kid. But I love Judgment Day. I talk about them all the time. I think this is the best Finn has ever been in his entire career right now as a character. Not just talking about in wrestling and in ring. I'm talking about as an actual character. This is the best character work he's ever done. I think Rhea has really flourished in her role, and she's kind of becoming the pseudo leader. Now they say they don't have one, but she definitely is the reason in the group. Senior Money in the Bank, Damian is getting a lot of shine in this. Is coming across very strong, and of course, Dominic is probably arguably the best heel in the actual business from a heat perspective, like a true, real heat perspective. Like we talked about. Who's the better heel, MJF or Dominic? And I said Dominic because he's a real heel. People don't like him. Like, right? People still like MJF.
They want to like him.
They want to like him, and they love to boo him. But people don't love to boo Dominic. They want to boo Dominic because they think he's an asshole. I think the group is amazing. I love that they have all the gold. I don't know what's next for him because I wish in some ways that we can possibly get like the Bloodline, the original Bloodline, back together versus Judgment Day in War Games. That would be a treat. I don't know who would be face and who would be heel in that scenario, but I'd love to see it.
Yeah, agreed. And I think the moment for me that really told me that Dominic was over as a heel was when he was able to carry on all that heat without his dad. Right? You told the story with your dad. It's over with. Now, will anybody care? Oh, they care even more. They still hate you. And the story's over. So
Ray left to a whole nother to SmackDown to get away from you, and you still getting hate from it.
Right. And it was just, I just like to see, especially for the reasons that you gave, Matt, about who was going to give up on him, what we were supposed to do, and it just completely turned around for him. And I agree. I can't really think of someone who made that such a drastic turn. Speaking of MJF, has he gone too far, or was he going too far during his zenith as a heel?
When he
don't get them started.
That drink,
don't get both of them started, please.
If I had a bat, I probably would have swung it and hit him. If he poured a drink on my baby or spilled a drink on my kid, it's over.
Over.
Period. It's
Was
over.
was the kid placed there? Was he
No, that was not a plant.
That was not a plant.
not a plant. No. Nope.
And double
we
down
can
on
talk
it right
about
in front of Tony Khan?
Say again?
And double down on it right in front of Tony Khan? Oh, the kid was thirsty.
Yeah, he sure did. He sure did. Which, I mean, you
I
have
forgot
to,
about that.
right? Yeah, like, you have to.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't think it was racially motivated. People try to make it
Oh,
seem
I
like
don't think it
a
was
racial
that,
thing.
no.
I don't
No,
think it
I
had
don't
anything
think
to
so.
do with it
Oh.
at all. But you can't probably do that. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
You
can't
probably
do that.
can't do that. No, you do not do that.
But
Yeah,
he
you
did it
can't
and he
really
got
do
away
that,
with
man.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know when it happened, I was just in a group that I hated it,
Mhm.
and
I thought that.
I think I mentioned to somebody, I'm not sure what the context of the storyline was, but you know I mentioned like, yeah, I didn't like it. It was a black kid too, and you know it immediately triggered Mac. It's like, oh, it's not racially motivated. I'm not saying it was. I'm saying it because it was a black kid. It triggered me because I
Mhm.
saw my child in that child.
Mhm.
Like, right, for some reason, I envisioned my 10-year-old, and I just immediately got hot about it. Like, because if that happened to my son in front of me, I will be on one. I'm not the kind of guy that likes to fight people. Like, I don't do that anymore. And maybe back in my day, I thought for some reason I thought I was the guy.
This guy,
But yeah,
Ryan, if you don't know, if
I
you
used to
don't
be a
know,
thug
Ryan,
back in the day, Ryan.
he's like 5'4",
Tell him.
102 pounds.
Oh, say this.
Okay,
Sorry,
so
hey, this is
he
this is
has
disrespectful.
never,
All right.
he has
Bantamweight.
never.
And this is definitely. I'm definitely. I've always been a heavyweight, number one. All right.
Size of the
God.
fight
if
and the
I was a-
doggy.
And if I was
Size
a
of the
wrestler, see,
fight.
I'm 5'9". If I was a wrestler, I would be 5'11". Right. So it's
That's
fine.
true. That's
But yeah, I wanted to fight, and I wasn't
Yep.
mad at MJF the character. I was mad at MJF the man because I felt like he should have known better.
Mhm.
I felt he went way too far. Like, right, trying to draw some kind of heat, so he can get some kind of a boo. He can do that without, you know, putting water onto. I just believe that you should protect children at all costs.
Right.
At all costs. And I feel like he just crossed the line in that moment. I'm still kind of not happy with the man behind the character just yet. Like that moment really kind of took some fandom for me.
Yeah, I think they pushed the lines a little too far, and there was, some instances with some of the things he was saying in the ring that was kind of like I could do without, and a lot of like always, WWE is gonna come and give me money, and come on, man, we trying to
Bidding
push
wars
AEW
of 2024.
here. Yeah,
I'm past that.
yeah,
Because to your point, like, it was cool the first couple times, but when you keep doing it, and now with maybe Tony not having the best managerial / leadership skills, MJF is still saying his contract is up in January.
the chickens have the chance to run the coop over there. I'm sorry, Tony Khan. Don't mean it as any personal disrespect, but you need a couple special enforcers to go around and make sure everything stays in line over there. CM Punk gone, like we said. MJF can be out of control and doesn't seem like there's any kind of reprimand for it. I'm all about getting, because that's the WWF playbook from the Attitude Era, right? But even Stone Cold
Mhm.
knew where his boundaries were,
Hey, Tony Khan, I told him I'm willing to come out of retirement because back in the day with the crew, I was the enforcer of the crew, Ryan. I was the guy. I was like the heavy.
Even
I was
Ryan's
the guy.
laughing at you.
Which
Ryan's
crew?
like,
I was
"You
the guy they
kidding me right
called.
now?"
You know what I'm saying?
Which
To come
crew?
like,
Believe it.
hey,
Oh,
E,
but, yo, what crew was
hey,
that?
E,
Which crew?
E, go get him.
I
Go
believe
get
it,
him.
man. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm willing to do that for him. But hey, I got a question for you, Ryan. So, do you think so? If MJF's contract is up, let's say next year, as he's saying, if you're MJF, would you go? Let's talk about the money. Because the money is probably going to be right no matter where he goes. I would imagine.
Right.
Would you go to AEW? Or would you go to WWE?
I don't see a reason to leave AEW at this point. They've definitely handled your career the right way. They held on to you until you were ready to be released into the main stage. You took full advantage of the situation. You've had a pretty decent title run, a long title run. I don't feel the need to come over.
My sentiments
agree.
too.
Yep, I agree because he can't be who he is now in WWE. And that's not even just saying, okay, I can't cuss. No, you would have to not completely, but before Roman, and Roman's a different type of heel, because for the majority of this run, Roman has gotten more cheers than boos. Not now, of course, but if you look at his run, they haven't used heels to their maximum capability. MJF is a face right now, but I think them running shows like Wembley, and will continue to run Wembley, that's their WrestleMania. And yes, it doesn't have the WrestleMania name in front of it, but I'm working in front of 70,000 people. That used to only be a WWE thing. Okay, so now we're checking that off. MJF is going to probably keep the keys to the castle in AEW. He's already helping with storylines over there, things that he just wouldn't do in WWE. To E's point, the money's going to be the same. That won't be an issue. It would just be, hey, do you think that you can become bigger? Now, he absolutely can be bigger in WWE because they have more eyeballs. So say if his thing is, man, I really want to get to Hollywood. All right, and maybe going to WWE for 3 or 4 years may be the way to get the maximum amount of eyeballs on you. But for him liking what he's doing, I think he's staying at AEW.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he can't leave. Tony would have to do anything and everything possible. MJF leaving would be a bigger blow than Cody and Punk combined.
Wow, because I think Cody was a huge blow to AEW. I think Cody leaving, especially I think he was one of those locker room leaders that they're solely missing.
Yeah,
right now.
I think in the locker room, yeah, that was definitely a huge loss. But in the ring, Cody had pretty much wrote himself out of the title picture. So where were you really going?
That was part of the problem too. Is that early on he kind of wrote himself out of that. Which, I mean, it's wrestling. He could have done that. Which
true.
But for me, thinking about MJF, so he's 27 now, right? So he'll be 28, 29, kind of somewhat going to the prime of his career.
And whose prime is in 30s? Typically, your prime is in your 40s in wrestling.
Well, shit. I mean, look at LA Knight right now. But if you think about if you're MJF, if he were to go to WWE, right? I don't think by any means he get lost in shuffle. Because if you want to talk about a wrestler that he personally knows that was able to go and be themselves and flourish, he can look no further than Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes is every bit the same Cody Rhodes that he was in AEW. In some ways, he's the better version of Cody Rhodes in the WWE with the machine behind him. Just imagine, take the cursing out, right? Mm-hmm. Just imagine MJF in the machine.
With that pyro.
Right? With the pyro. If he signed like a 4-year deal with WWE, just being in that machine, having that worldwide appeal. And because here's what we don't talk about wrestling, but we do, but we don't acknowledge it. There's WWE here, and then way over here you got AEW. Now AEW, I mean, they awesome at the Wembley Arena. They did 80,000, whatever it is. But WWE is a worldwide brand
with years of experience.
With years of experience, just imagine him going to WWE, like the type of brand that he will be building there, right? He could always come back to AEW and be an even bigger star because guess what? He's been a bigger global entity going on in WWE, and I think that's one of his dreams. You know, he, like everybody else, he started as a WWF or WWE fan, so that's something he would want to do. I just think it might be a great career move for him. He can get that star power from being in that machine.
Good point. Very good point. Whatever he decides, we shall see what happens. I mean, I think there'll be big plans for him either way. He will definitely have to adjust his approach. Coming to the WWE in this PG, era, he's about 30 years too late, 25, 30 years too late for that. But man, that's freaking wrestling. That is freaking wrestling, and that is freaking wrestling talk. But before we close up, though, we do a little thing here. We call it light speed. It's kind of a play on rapid fire, even though it doesn't go too rapid because I end up slowing it down anyway. So I just downplayed my own segment. But that's all right.
Getting my heart rate high over here. I'm like, oh God.
Yeah. We need to simmer that down a little bit there. We were having that conversation in the chat. But would you guys like to participate in Light Speed?
Absolutely.
Let's go. Let's do it.
All right, we got Light Speed here with That's Freakin Wrestling, Matt, Rhodesia, and E, Thug E, Enforcer E,
Oh, Lord.
as he already has told us as
Ryan,
well too.
come
So
on.
the first, I gotta play it up, man. We all gotta live
Look,
the
he's
gimmick,
so
man.
proud of himself over there. Look
gotta
at
live
him.
the gimmick,
He
man.
blushing right now. He
You know.
If
blushing.
we don't live the
You
gimmick,
know.
why are we living? First question here on Light Speed: top 5 wrestlers anyone could start of all time.
Roman.
Roman.
Well, she gave hers. There you go. That's rapid fire. E, you want to go next, or you want me to go?
Shawn Michaels, Cody Rhodes, Roman Reigns, Mr. Perfect, Steve Austin.
Stone Cold rounding off the top. What we got, Matt?
Give me Flair. Give me Austin. Give me Rock. Give me. I gotta put Hogan in there, unfortunately, because I wouldn't be watching wrestling if it wasn't for Hogan. And then let's have some fun with the 5th one. Let's do
Cody Rhodes.
let's do Shawn Michaels.
Shawn
Nice pick.
Michaels. My top kind of sort of reflects your top. Just take out Hogan, add Hart. Obviously, I think that's not a surprise to anybody. But we got some honorable mentions. Obviously, Undertaker. Well, how do you
Right.
in a top 10? Right, we're not going to do a top 10, but in the top 10, it is John Cena in there for y'all? He's the GOAT.
Absolutely. So
Matt?
like
What
my,
are we basing this question off of?
So this list that I hypothetically always make up and talk about has to do with a lot of things: in-ring capability, longevity, fan appreciation, promo ability, and I had a 5th metric on there, and I don't remember what it was.
You said longevity. Cena was on top for like a decade.
yeah.
So, yep.
How about you, E?
You know, I respect John Cena,
Oh,
but he's not
Watch out.
he's not on my list.
He doesn't crack the top 10
He doesn't crack the
No,
top
not
with
on
10.
my
those
list.
numbers. With what Ryan just gave you, he doesn't still crack the top 10. Promo ability, longevity.
But you also said fandom, right? So for me as a fan, I don't like seeing John Cena at all.
Not even now.
He's a little better now.
Mm.
Yeah.
I get it. You can't see him.
You can't.
That's why.
That's the whole
I
point.
get it.
No, did you guys watch Raw? No one could.
How good was that, man?
That was very
Stu
good.
saw.
Props to the
Stu
Miz,
saw.
man. Props to the Miz for laying that out.
Yeah.
Like we said, very underappreciated. Top 5 tag teams of all time.
Oh,
I'll be fair. I'll be honest on this one. So we're gonna go Usos, Young Bucks, FTR, The New Day, and Lucha Brothers.
Give me FTR, Usos, Heart Foundation, Legion of Doom,
Slash
or
Road
Road Warriors. And then Young Bucks.
Young Bucks. All right, I'm
Young
gonna go Usos, Midnight Express. I'm gonna go Arn and Telly. I'm gonna go Demolition, and then I'm gonna go to Road Warriors.
The Road Warriors. All very fantastic choices. I like the ode to some of the teams of the past that led to the teams of the future. But a couple of your answers there led me to my next question: Young Bucks or FTR?
For me, it's Young Bucks. And quick
FTR.
honorable mention on my tag team, The Ascension. Go continue, Sean.
The Ascension.
God.
Mm-hmm.
I almost can't continue this podcast now. I mean, I'm so disgusted right now.
I shut
Like,
it all the way
it's-
down.
She
I'm
raised
like,
the
all
roof
right,
with
it's
the
time to go.
Ascension, man.
Oh man, I'll tell you another story about the Ascension another day, right? Man, she threw me off. What were we talking about?
FTR or Bucks?
FTR or Young Bucks?
FTR.
Man, that's such a hard question because Young Bucks revolutionize a lot.
Mm-hmm.
If we're talking only in ring, FTR. If we're talking about the entire kit and caboodle, Young Bucks.
So as a physical therapist, man, even the bumps that Young Bucks and Omega take, they really make me cringe a little bit. Like you have to be very, very skilled and trained to take some of the bumps that they take, all for our enjoyment. I thought I was going FTR, but I think I'm gonna slide to the Young Bucks. Surprisingly, because the FTR wrestles my style of wrestling. You know, more technical, more get you on the mat and grind you down a little bit. But I'm taking the Young Bucks here. Next question: Bryan Danielson or Kenny Omega?
Come on. Why would you do that? I thought we were cool.
That's a good one. He's at rapid fire. Hurry up, Rhodesia.
Light speed is.
I'm panicking. Bryan Danielson. Oh.
American Dragon, baby.
The best bout machine, Kenny Omega.
Kenny Omega. I ask these questions because I have trouble with them, you know, so I seek some help. I've been saying Kenny Omega is the best, you know, wrestler in the world for several years now. But there's nobody I respect more than Bryan Danielson. And what he's done to, you know, to rise up the ranks and early in his career and stay on, especially after injury. Man, but I gotta lean to Kenny. Sorry, Brian.
There you go,
I gotta lean to Kenny, man.
There are no wrong answers here. You know what I mean? Because these questions are absolutely set up.
Bit, though.
Yeah, these questions are set up for us to like look like a buffoon if we say the other name. So it's all good.
There's a lot of thought going into these questions, and I give a lot to Kenny too because everything he's done has been outside the WWE push, and that's very hard. What happened to? I guess this isn't really a rapid fire question, or light speed question. What happened to Sami Zayn and KO? Momentum after WrestleMania, did they live it up to it for you?
Nope.
No.
What happened to them was they were not in a story that we cared about afterwards.
And then KO got hurt, right? One of them got hurt.
Much later.
I mean, he was only off. He was only on TV for a couple weeks. Yeah, no, it was no story. You had the incredible build up with the Usos. They take the title, and then they were stuck in this Judgment Day and Imperium main eventing every week with nothing on the line on Raw. That's not good enough when you're coming off the hottest. I mean, there were some people who said that their story at WrestleMania was hotter than Cody and Roman's story. So you're coming off of either your top story or your second biggest story, your biggest show of the year, and you don't have a follow-up plan with the titles. That's what happened, is that they didn't have anything for them.
You know, we've seen this story many times when the face, you know, it kind of goes to Matt's horrible take about Cody winning the championship, right? Like a lot of times, once that baby face finishes the story, it kind of goes downhill because, like a lot of times, all the sizzle is in the chase, and then once they get that goal, it kind of fizzles. We've seen the count. I remember I was a big Sting fan back in the WCW days, and every time he won the championship, it was always very lackluster reigns. And I think that's what Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn were victim of, right? There was a lot of intrigue on them chasing the titles, and once they got there and they got to the top of the mountain, there was only one way to go, and it was down. They didn't have any proper feuds. They didn't have any meaningful things to do after winning the championship, because now the Usos were kind of in a story with Roman, right? Roman immediately afterwards was like, hey, if you guys don't win, this is going to happen. So now really it's not about Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. It's really about the Usos and Roman Reigns at that moment. So I think they're just victim of, you know, I don't know if this is a PG show or not. So I'm trying to
say what you mean and say it with your chest, man.
You know, it's once you get the girl and you have your good time, and now the thrill's gone.
Okay, yeah, we'll just leave it there. Because I was gonna say something else there, but okay.
Yeah, so I think moving on to Job to the Judgment Day was the right move because we didn't really see much. No offense to Sammy and KO, I like them both. I think Sammy has great creative control when he's allowed to have control of his matches and kind of help dictate the pace and stuff like that. So I think that they would have given him something to roll with. He definitely would have been able to roll with it. And
real quick too, Ryan, they have an incredible opportunity to tell a arguably just as good of a story with now Sammy and Jay on Raw.
Yeah.
Sammy trying to be peacemaker with everybody. The Bloodline screwed over. Hey, give him a chance.
First night back. Yeah, it's first night back.
You know what I mean? Like,
and
then of course KO's be like, "Look, dude, I'm over it. I've had this conversation with you. We should have left them in the past. So now we're going to be able to see when they have a story to sink their teeth into. They'll get right back to where they were before."
Very good point. Very good point. I'm looking forward to seeing the outcome of that for sure. Best wrestling theme song. We can only pick one.
Oh my God. In history?
In history.
I'm going to go NWO.
Oh, that's a good one.
That's a good pick.
Only because I botched my first lightning speed, fast question, speed round, whatever you call this. My favorite wrestler of all time is The Undertaker, so the Dong could be my favorite. Because that is just,
That's
once you hear it, you know it. You know it. And maybe Austin would probably be in second.
Yeah, I'm not a Taker guy either, Ryan. That's a darn good question. I wasn't ready for it because there are a lot of iconic songs. I think NWO is one of them. When you hear it, you automatically what's going on. I might say, as Rhodesia ended with Stone Cold, like when that glass break, you know what it is,
right?
Like and it was such a defining moment for his career too, because like that glass breaking meant so many different things for him as a character. Like, right, he finally broke through that glass ceiling, and he had arrived.
I never thought about it like that. That's a fantastic point. That's a fantastic point.
And the song still hits, but there's one song, and maybe you can think of it because I know I can't think of what it is. But there's a song that when I hear it today, it still hits hard, but I can't think of what that song is.
For me, that song is Batista, I Walk Alone, man.
That's another classic.
Oh my, that's the only one that I'll tell Alexa to play outside of any wrestling show, and I'll just sit and simmer in it like,
yes,
man, he's talking to me right now. What's going on?
How much of the pyro and him shooting it has to do with your love for the song?
Oh, a lot of it too. But I mean,
yes,
it just
man,
a lot of it too. Yeah, because he combined well with the pyro for sure, like that, and it did a lot for him and his entrance for sure. It was fantastic, man. I miss that guy, but he's doing great movies. Oh, and that's my next question. One guy for movies: Cena, Rock, Batista.
Batista clears all of them.
I was gonna say that, and I love Rock and Cena more, but yeah, Batista is the man. This is the last one that he was in where it was about to be the end of the world. Blew my mind.
That was a good one. That
Blew
was
my
good.
mind.
His range is incredible. Like,
yeah,
The Rock
it is.
plays The Rock, right? Every movie he's The Rock for the most part. Cena's starting to diversify pretty well, but Batista, I mean, hell,
yeah,
Guardians. I mean, he's doing what Blade Runner. He's all over the spectrum. He's fantastic.
Yes, those are, I would say, the cream of the crop when you think about wrestlers going to Hollywood. Batista especially. I watched Guardian of the Galaxy recently, and he was hilarious in that movie. And I actually prefer John Cena, the actor, over the wrestler. I like a lot of his stuff.
Peacemaker is excellent.
He's great in Peacemaker. He has a very awesome comedic timing. He was in a movie, I can't think of the name, with it's a brother, and
Vacation
they're like
Friends?
Vacation Friends.
Yeah,
Man, hilarious movie.
Hilarious.
Yeah.
That
hilarious.
bird's about to shit.
John Cena is a great actor too, but I gotta go with The Rock, man. He has so many great movies Man, I wish Black Adam would have panned out for him.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I like the movie.
For me, it's The Rock.
Me too. Yeah, and I think I have to look at the numbers. It did similar numbers to The Flash, didn't it? So I think they kind of gave up on that a little prematurely. I'm with Batista because of the. Yeah, I'm with Batista because of the variability that we talked about, but you can't deny that The Rock helped break that ceiling that we just talked about, like with Stone Cold, of wrestlers being marginal to bad actors. I mean,
well,
sorry,
even just to your question, now that you say that, it has to be The Rock. I mean, for me, it's Batista personally, because The Rock, wasn't he the highest paid actor in Hollywood?
He was.
Yeah, he was.
That speaks to something.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, well, he's, what do they call him? The most recognizable movie star or something like that. I mean, if you're looking at just dollars, yes.
Yeah, but Batista's a better actor.
I'm looking at who's the best actor. And it's Batista is the best actor.
All three have done great things, pushing wrestling. I like that a lot because it's making wrestling more popular with those guys. So putting it further on the mainstream. The final one here is your favorite wrestling title and favorite iteration of that title, because the looks always change, or maybe there was a certain wrestler that had his own or her own title that you may appreciate.
I don't want to be here forever, so I'm just going to say the IC championship right now with Gunther.
I would say maybe the white IC belt, but it's funny because I don't own it. Like I have the WWE Championship, it's behind Rhodesia. I have the big gold, but I don't have the Intercontinental. So is it really my favorite? But that's the one I'm gonna go with. That was iconic with the white leather.
I only have one championship I bought, and it's right there, which I don't know why I still have it in the case. But that's the big gold. I love the big gold. I love the look of it. I loved the NWA back in the day. That was just amazing TV. Like when I first discovered NWA, and that was actually it was Barry Windham. I think it was on channel 50 or something like that back in the day, y'all. Like maybe channel 56. It was on a weird channel. I discovered NWA, and I had to get the rabbit ears and kind of adjust them. It was kind of what was it back in the day? Staticky. Yeah,
I remember you had to flip the knob. It was like, what was it, like UHF and like something else to like something you had 2, 4, and 7 on the regular ones, and then if you wanted to get 20, 50, 56, 62, 38, you had to man, like that's old school.
Yeah.
We're
it was
really
like
showing our age.
We really showing our age.
This podcast by about 40 years.
We showed it.
Sorry, Ryan.
No,
it was like
I was right there with y'all, man. I was right there with y'all. They used to call me in there.
This? Oh, there we go. We were about to say, how about this? Not only did I had to go turn it, I had to stand by it because the electromagnetism in me, I just made up a word there.
Don't move. We can see right there.
Yeah.
Like,
that
I could tell I was the youngest
child.
child.
Kept it running. Those were the days.
I remember seeing Barry Windham on one of the WWF tapes back in the day, and I saw him like on his NWA. It's like, oh, what's this? And I started watching, and then I got into Ric Flair, and he had that big gold, beautiful championship, which is why I actually love the World Heavyweight Championship so much. I think it's a homage to that. So that's my favorite.
Excellent. Yep. I only own one title myself. It's the Winged Eagle back there that is also still in the case as well, too. So I probably have to take that one out as well. So that would be my favorite. I know the $1 Million Championship isn't a real winnable title, but that was always an excellent title.
It looked really good.
One.
Yeah,
as another one too.
Yeah.
So those two, and I like the white Intercontinental too. That was also a very stylish belt. But I think it was Macho Man who put the teal on the Winged Eagle, wasn't it? Was it him? That
might be Ultimate Warrior.
Was it Ultimate Warrior?
Yeah, it was Warrior. I think, right? I think it was.
The Warrior had a yellow one too. He had a bunch. He had like different colors. For a while, he'd come out with different color belts. Yeah.
That teal one. My revisionist history is now saying it's Macho Man for selfish reasons. But that's okay. Is another title that I like. But the Winged Eagle is the one that for sure is that's a good one. And that's the one Cody's bringing back. If he wins the title, when he wins the title, he has said the Winged Eagle is coming back.
I would love a revised version of that coming back. Because I'm not a fan of the undisputed title.
Yeah, it's a little.
Well,
plain.
anybody who watched wrestling back in the day, we were talking Hogan, Brett, Shawn, the Winged Eagle was the epitome of what we all looked at as the top prize. So
No doubt.
that's a really good one. That's a really good one.
And as far as go ahead.
It looks like it was Ultimate Warrior. Is that possible? They had the blue one?
No, that makes
Yeah,
sense.
It's very, very
okay.
possible.
Yep.
Yeah, very
Yeah.
possible.
Yep, that's what pulled up.
I think he even had an orange one too.
Yeah, like you said, he had all the colors to match all them tassels. He was running around with as well too. But as far as the wrestler specific, Stone Cold's championship belt is head and shoulders above any of the wrestler specific belts for me.
Yes, and it's not even close. I agree.
Yes, indeed. So I told you Lightspeed doesn't go that quick. We can all catch up to it. But it is a good theme either way. That's Freakin Wrestling. Like I said, we had Matt, Rhodesia, Enforcer E in the building. Came in, shut it down. What did we learn today?
Red Day, you're just an awesome guy, Ryan. I just wanted to say this in the beginning, but Matt was stealing a little bit of my thunder there. When we first met you, you had such a beautiful light about yourself. And I remember when we left, I'm like, man, Ryan's just a good guy. And I wish him all the best of luck in everything that you do in your future. And we were blessed to even just meet you ourselves. So thank you for being a light. Keep on shining.
Very much appreciated. The blessings go two ways because, like I mentioned earlier, if it wasn't for the work that you all have done and the inspiration and the words that you gave, there is no Parallax Effect podcast. It still remains a dream or an idea that I wake up and go to sleep with and wonder why I hadn't tried it yet. So a million thanks to each of you. Ian, Matt, what did we learn?
I learned you gave E 4 more gimmicks on this 2-hour podcast. I already had to deal with this one gimmick. Now you just gave him 3 more. So now he's going to rotate. So I was going to say, hey, man, now you got to come on our pod. But maybe not now.
Because he's going to do 2 more gimmicks for him.
He's going to do 2 more. And then now, E just comes with a different gimmick every single week. And we can't have that. So that's what I learned. But no, overall, man, fantastic conversations with you. Last time we actually had a chance to talk for this long was actually face-to-face Mania weekend. So, we DM'd back and forth a little bit, but great connection. And Rhodesia kind of just said everything. I'm happy that you have this platform. I am super excited to see how you grow, and just don't forget us.
Yeah, the little people here.
Make sure you bring us back. Make sure you shout us out, and it's all good.
All day, every day, for sure. You already know that. Welcome anytime. We still have to schedule our revision, our rewatching, our recommentating of the Iron Man match. One of the quintessential, most influential matches in the history of wrestling, Matt. The history, and we're all going to witness it together. What'd you learn, E?
I'm there with you, man. I just learned how great of a guy you are, man. I love the story, and that's what our community is for, right? To connect with each other, to help each other grow, to inspire and encourage, and it goes both ways. I love that. If we can continue to tell those stories and do that for our culture in this community, I think it's a beautiful thing. And I think that you learned what I already know is that Matt and Rhodesia are heels. They're heels. You see how they're trying to turn on you just for being a good person and being genuine. They're just quickly turning on you, snap of the finger, right? But hey, just let you know, I'm here for you, man. Right? And now I know. Here's what I learned. I know I got another brother, man, that I can call on, right? I can
cue the music.
I can get a run in, right? Like, hey, Ryan, save me, man. The heels are trying to beat me down. I can get Ryan on the DM to come run in for your boy and save him. Thank you, Ryan.
Look here, man. I stay in gorilla position, man. I am ready to hit the curtain. Cue the pyro because I need to, stop and do my little Jeff Hardy on the way down before I come help you out. But yeah, I'll be there for you, man, all the way. This has been another episode of the Parallax Effect Podcast. We got That's Freakin Wrestling. Where can the people find you if they haven't found you already?
Yes, we are on all the socials for the most part. We're on Twitter or X at That's FNW. Also on Instagram, That's FNW. YouTube is That's Freakin Wrestling, and we are on every single podcast platform that you would be listening to us on right now. Type in That's Freakin Wrestling, hit that follow button, and you get us twice a week, every week.
Twice a week. Do yourselves a favor. That's Freakin Wrestling, especially if you are a wrestling fan or even if you're looking to get into wrestling. A lot of knowledge to pick up and learn on their show. A fantastic show. Thank you all so much for joining us today here on the Parallax Effect Podcast. Let me remind you all, you can find us on Instagram at Parallax Effect Media. You can find us on Facebook at the Parallax Effect Podcast, on Twitter at Parallax Effects. Once again, that's Parallax Effects with an S. And search RiloCan27 on TikTok or Parallax Effect Media because we are there. We so much thank you so much. Please give us a rating. Hopefully it's 5 stars. If not, let me know what I can do better so we can grow, we can provide entertainment, and we can reach more people out with our show. Thank you for joining the Parallax Effect Podcast, where every angle reveals a new depth of understanding. You've been watching the Parallax Effect Podcast, where every angle reveals a new depth of understanding.